Hello and welcome to the FISHCAST. We are the world's first and foremost Fishmans podcast. This podcast is really intended for anyone who is already a fan of the band Fishmans or anyone who wants to get into their music. Fishmans, for those who are not in the know, are a Japanese band who primarily released their music in the 1990s in the genres of reggae, dub, and later on some dream pop. My name is Ray Carlton, and this is my co-host,
Christian Garcia.
Chris was actually a fan of Fishmans before me.
That's right, yeah.
And how did you find out about the band?
Well, through a wonderful site.
Called Rate Your Music?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm sure that's where most of their American fan base is from.
Yeah, Fishmans never really gained popularity outside of Japan while they were an active band. It's mainly come in more recent years through Rate Your Music and their live album, along with their album and track Long Season, which are both very popular on there. So, you know, Chris being a Rate Your Music fanatic.
I mean, they gained a lot of their popularity just through the internet as a whole, which is, you know, really impressive. Like 20 years later, they amassed such a large audience just through the internet.
Yeah,
which I am a part of.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
Digital citizen.
Well, yeah.
So what year did you find out about the band?
In 2018, I'd say sometime around August. It was soon after their music was finally added to Spotify, after being pretty hidden.
Had you heard about them before that, or so you were just kind of waiting until it was more accessible?
I know there are a few albums on YouTube, but I just never got around to them. But once they're on Spotify, it was a lot more convenient.
True. Yeah. What was the first Fishmans track or album that you listened to?
The first album, I started with the live album, which for most people isn't a great entry point, but I was just so hyped, you know, people talking about it all the time. That and Long Season. So I guess the first Fishmans track I ever listened to was O Slime.
O Slime. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And as for me, Chris was the one that got me into the band, sort of around the same time he told me about them, and I listened to Long Season, the studio version, and part of the live album, but it really wasn't until this year when I started listening to the band more and actually became a fan. Not that I disliked them when I listened to them earlier, but more that I just didn't ever have the time to listen to their entire discography until recently. So basically, this podcast, we're going to be going through every Fishmans album, going through track-by-track reviews in each episode, and then eventually we'll be covering the live album along with its accompanying sort of live concert. And then after that, we'll be talking about all of the assorted singles, B-sides, bootlegs, pretty much everything.
Every single release. We'll try to get to
release. Yeah. And as Chris is the more experienced Fishmans fan, he'll sort of be guiding me through this. I've heard all the albums at this point, but really only once or twice per album. So I think his opinions are already established, but I'll be reevaluating what I feel.
Maybe I will too. Never know.
True.
Yeah.
So in terms of just our musical backgrounds, what were some of your favorite music before getting into Fishmans?
For a while, a lot of, you know, post-rock acts like Swans and Godspeed really got me into listening to music.
A real Rate Your Music boy.
Okay, hold on, let me finish. I mean, recently, for the past couple of years, it's been mostly electronic music. Autek is the big one. Autek and Boards of Canada, you know, the only two IDM artists
boys
ever. Yeah. Those are pretty much the main ones. The most important ones.
Do you think that any of their sort of style carried over into Fishmans, like any reason?
No, I don't think so.
So Fishmans are like totally new to you in terms
I'd say
of
so, yeah, like I'm always into some, you know, some pop music. But I'd say the main bands that I generally listen to, like they don't really carry over in terms of style. So in that regard, Fishmans are a bit of an
outlier. Nice. As for me, my main band has always been the Gorillaz. And just a sort of disclaimer, I don't know if any of the listeners here are also fans of Gorillaz, but if you are, you may have heard of the podcast Hallelujah Monkeys. It's a really great Gorillaz podcast that's been running for a few years now, and our format for our episodes is pretty much going to be directly ripped from theirs, just in terms of how we do the track-by-track reviews, using certain adjectives to describe things. So just a shout out to them. If you're already a fan of Gorillaz and you haven't heard of them, go check them out on Spotify or YouTube. And if you want to get into Gorillaz, Hallelujah Monkeys, really good podcast to go check out. But other than Gorillaz, I've always been sort of an indie pop boy myself, big into like MGMT, Glass Animals, even some Coldplay here and there. It's kind of been a guiding force for me. So I guess that is what drew me into Fishmans, was how, you know, they're rooted in pop music, despite occasionally getting a bit more experimental. And I've never really been into dub or reggae at all, so Fishmans is kind of my first venture into
Well, you
that
like
area.
the Gorilla self.
I like the Gorilla self-title, but I don't know if that really
Yeah.
counts. So as for the history of the band in their early years, what was going on? How did Fishmans form? Who are Fishmans? What is a Fishman?
What is a Fishman? I'm not sure what a Fishman is, but Fishmans, the band, was composed of members Shinji Sato, who's a vocalist, occasionally guitarist and cornet player.
True.
Kenichi Motegi, he was the drummer and provided vocals on the first
I
album.
also see on their Wikipedia page that Motegi used a sampler.
Oh, yeah, I guess
is
so.
credited.
Yeah, and you can see on his drum kit that he plays, it's a combination of acoustic drums and electronic drums.
Nice. And who was their guitarist?
Guitarist. Is this a quiz?
Yeah.
I believe it was it Kensuke Ojima?
It was Kensuke Ojima.
That was him. He was a
Guitar
guitarist.
and background vocals.
And I know their keyboard player, Hakase.
You're getting ahead of yourself. I wrote all this down. So basically, Fishmans formed in 1987
That is
in Tokyo, more specifically in Minato. And originally, the only three members were Sato, Motegi, and Ojima. For the next
Really?
couple years, they were playing shows
yeah.
around Tokyo. Their bassist was the next to join. Yuzuro Kashiwabara joined in 1988. Probably, aside from Sato, the most distinctive member of the band in terms of his really strong
his
bass
bass
lines.
is
It's in your
It's the
face.
bass.
It's the bass.
okay.
And then it wasn't until 1990 when the keyboards were added with Hakase.
I guess I was just thinking in terms of their that's album, since that's
True.
what we're
Yeah.
talking
So today, what we're going to be talking about is Chappie, Don't Cry. It's the first full-length album by Fishmans. It was released in 1991. So 4 years after the band formed. So by this point, they had already played numerous shows, kind of been a staple of the local Tokyo scene. Kind of surprising to me that they released their debut album so far after they formed.
I guess
Why
so.
do you think they waited?
Not sure. I know there were a couple songs of them on a compilation of other Japanese ska and dub songs. I think it was called Panic Paradise. It was like 1988,
This is true.
87 or 88. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not sure why it took them so long to record an album.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
to be
just
fair, the
nervous.
band did sign with Virgin Records in 1990, so they really weren't on a major label until around this period, so maybe they were waiting until they gained some more traction and a big fan base.
Could be it.
And ahead of this album, there was one lead single, Hikoki, or Airplane, which has sort of become one of the band's signature live
good track.
staples, probably because of its inclusion on the
album, yeah, that
1998
definitely
live
helps.
album. Yeah, and this album was produced by Kazufumi Kodama, and he told the group, let's make a rocksteady album.
Oh.
That
there
was
you
the
go.
basis of the record.
Wow.
And I guess it sort of is that, to
A
some
little.
degree.
It in a weird sort of way. It's related. Yuzuru with his rock steady bass lines, of course.
Those bass lines. So before getting into this album, I guess we should talk about the general trajectory of Fishmans as a band and sort of how they're perceived. Because I know that this album, at least on Rate Your Music, is probably the least critically acclaimed of the band. It has a rating of 2.74 out of 5. And the sort of the common theme that I see is people saying that it's not really a necessary album, that it's kind of just mainly like an interesting, like a stepping stone into what they would later do. Less that it has value on its own and more that it's just like for diehard fans. Do you agree with that?
Not really. Just like based on principle, only because, I mean, first off, I love them so much, so I would never just discredit one of their albums as just being a stepping stone or unimportant. But I do see where people are coming from. It doesn't really, besides the whole dub reggae thing, it doesn't really share a lot with their later albums, or even albums around that same time period, like the kind of stuff that they wanted to do. It's very familiar, very derivative. So I get where people are coming from, where they kind of put it off, but
It's true. And I also think it really depends on the order that you listen to the Fishmans albums.
Yeah.
Because I know for you, like, you started with the live album and kind of the more hyped up stuff, and then you went back in time and listened to their other projects. So for that, I could see...
and that's where most people.
Yeah, I could
start
see
with
how
Fishmans.
in that instance the album could be kind of disappointing. But for me, I was already familiar with Long Season, but when I got into Fishmans, I listened to their discography from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to this before a lot of their later stuff. So for me, it felt more... I think I was just able to accept it for what it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't really like disappointed because I didn't have any expectations.
There you go.
And I think that's sort of maybe the correct way to listen to it. We were talking before about how there are all these charts online saying like, if you want to get into so-and-so band, start with this album, and then
yeah.
if you like this, then go to this album. And I really don't like that. I think as long as the discography isn't massive, you should really try to, just listen to each album and see the evolution.
Yeah.
All right. So like I previously said, a lot of this podcast is going to be sort of informed by the format of Hallelujah Monkeys. And one of the things that they do on that show that I really enjoy is they pick 3 adjectives to describe each album. But in order to sort of constrain themselves, they choose a random letter for each album, and then you have to choose 3 adjectives that begin with that letter. So for this one, I got the letter V, which was really tough because there aren't many adjectives that start with V. But my first adjective for Chappie would be varied. I think this album, a lot of people think or say that it kind of all sounds the same, but to me, on a first listen, it's really only a few tracks that are in a similar style. Like, the album was surprisingly varied, and it really changed up from track to track. And I think the sequencing and just the range and the diversity that the band shows here is really promising, especially on their debut. Like, it's not nearly as widespread or influenced by a variety of things as their later albums, but it is surprisingly just stylistically diverse for a debut. And then my second adjective was versed, as in like well-versed.
Nice.
Because I think, like I was saying before, the band didn't release this right after forming. They waited for a few years. So although some people might say that it sounds kind of rudimentary compared to their later releases, I think they sound very confident at what they're doing. Like, it definitely sounds like they've been playing together for a while, and they're just well-versed in all of the, stylistic trappings of the genres that they're working in. It never sounds like the band is out of their depth, or that they're attempting to do something that they're not successful at. So they might be playing it safe, but I think they're playing to their strengths. And then my final adjective is virginal. This is true. Sort of, I have to agree with this, especially given the context of the band's later work. This album definitely does sound more like the seeds of something germinating than really like the full flowering tree. A lot of the elements here are sort of the first time that something happens, like Shinji doing his really high voice or things like that. So they're not necessarily that interesting on their own, but in the context of future releases, you can sort of see where things started from. And I know this is kind of a fourth adjective, but I wanted to say one V word that this album is not is voluntary. I think a lot of Fishmans fans think that you don't need to listen to this album or that it's not on the level of the other albums. I disagree with this. All albums are important.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like this album. So
very good album.
If you want to get into the band, I really recommend starting here as opposed to anything later. And if you're already into them, I recommend taking a second look at it.
Yeah.
What are your adjectives, Chris?
All right. I got a better letter. I got F, but even then it was a little tough.
F for Fishmans. Funky Fresh.
Okay, and mostly because he ended with the adjective virginal, I'll just start with one of mine, familiar. I already said it earlier on. Yeah, they're trying some things, but it all does sound like you're not going to be blown away by it. And I'm not trying to like insult the album by any means, but
it's
yeah,
like
it is.
food.
It's exactly. I was gonna say it's a very comfortable, familiar experience. It's gonna kind of feel like home, especially if you're already into like dub and reggae music. I like this one, flaccid.
We have flaccid and virginal. This is interesting adjectives.
Okay. I was mostly saying this because not a whole lot of tracks. It just sounds like I'm ragging on this album.
It does.
No, trust me, I love this album. But plenty of tracks. I don't know if this is just because they're just starting off, but a lot of them lack a bit of punch, and not just in the production sense. They feel a bit aimless, or they feel sort of rudimentary.
Meandering, yeah.
Yeah, which is fine.
Shinji is not in his fully erect state yet. That's an image I didn't want in my head.
Anyway, okay, my last adjective. This one's a little more positive. It's frolicky.
Frolicky. Nice.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I really like that one. It definitely captures a very fun, joyful, delightful mood. It sounds like a frolicky little morning.
And I think that really continues into their later work. I mean, aside from maybe some of their final albums, which are a bit more melancholic, a lot of their earlier albums are really like, it's the middle of summer, you're riding your bike, you're walking down the street with a little spring in your step.
Also some orange juice. This album makes me think of orange juice. If I had the letter O.
I guess that's true. Yeah,
juice.
just like a nice fresh glass of OJ. It's just kind of comfortable and it's tasty.
Yeah, I know it's a little weird, but that's just one of the things I think of when I listen to Chappie, I want a glass of orange juice.
Chappie. And I guess before we actually get into the tracks here, let's talk about this cover art. Because for me personally, I've always been a real big advocate for good cover art, especially when checking out new artists. I really feel like, if I've heard positive buzz behind an album, I'm probably going to check it out regardless. But if I'm just browsing through iTunes or Spotify, it really does depend on the cover art whether or not I'm going to check something out.
That's true.
So I listened to this album because I was getting into the band, but I feel like this cover art, it's their worst cover. Am I right?
Okay, maybe that's true, but I still kind of like it.
We got some hats.
You got hats.
Who's Chappie? What's going on here?
That I can't. That I've never figured out. Chappie. Looking at it, it looks English.
It does. It's
like the
very
Chappie,
English
the
vibe.
hat, everything.
The font,
everything. Yeah. But no, it is very much Japanese.
Does the cover resonate with you?
Not really. I'm just so used to it. I've never really thought about it. But yeah, like obviously if you take a closer look at it, it's hats and it's Fishmans.
True.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, I know we're not really talking about rating the cover art, but I would probably I don't know.
Is this going to be the only album you talk about the cover art with?
No, I'm especially critical here because a lot of the later Fishmans releases have some of my favorite cover art ever. So this one really just pales in comparison. When I'm scrolling through their Spotify looking at the images, I'm just like, oh, there it is.
I guess so.
Anyway, but
yep.
All right. So with that out of the way, let's get into the track by track.
By track.
So the first track on Chappie is Hikurikai Teta Futari, which translates to two people who were turning back. So the first thing I noticed about this track, there's a really hype intro, kind of just leads you straight in with excitement.
A little bit, yeah. And then, honestly, this is one of my favorite choruses on the album.
Yeah?
Yeah, but that's honestly the most I can say for me. Plenty of times.
Oh,
like,
I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, maybe not. But no, I that's like the main strength of the track for me, is that chorus and the way it goes right into it.
Yeah, it's just propulsive. I also like the opening drum break.
Oh yeah.
This drum sound that you hear, this like boom 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 boom, really becomes like a big staple of all of Fishman's songs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's really just like a broader thing in this style of music.
But they make it their own.
But specifically for them, even in their more chill tracks, there's always these really cool drum breaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it feels like a machine sort of sputtering to life.
You think? Oh really?
Just like, I don't know, like it's just propulsive. It's not really laid back to me.
I find it almost too laid back.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I would never imagine anything like mechanical being used to describe like this.
Or like a life force, a fish starting to swim in the ocean.
Okay, that's better.
So I mean, yeah, we get the opening drum break, a verse, and a chorus, and then a little while in we get a guitar solo. How do we feel about this solo? I thought the first one on this track is a bit basic, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it's all right. And I guess this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, even when they do, like, a guitar solo or they add in, like, a little funky part, it doesn't feel confident enough for me to really, like, get into it. It feels like it's there, and I don't really think about it after.
It's pleasant.
It's pleasant. It works,
yeah. So the backing vocals on this track, do we know who they're by? Either Motegi or...
I'm sure it's just the band. I'm sure. And Motegi, like, I know later on, provided a lot of backing vocals. So
I like the use of them here, though. They really support Shinji in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, I think the song goes on a bit too long, and the energy kind of dies off after the first guitar solo.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's not over. We get another guitar solo. I actually like this one more. It's a bit funkier on its own, but in the context of the song, at this point I've kind of lost interest. I mean, I'm still grooving, but this song, like a lot of them on this album, is well past the 5-minute mark.
Yeah.
So I think around like 3 or 4 minutes, the song kind of has reached its zenith, and then
it keeps
going.
It has the potential to be like a really great opener.
Yeah.
And it kind of just meanders a bit.
Yeah. Like I think it's a really strong opening, particularly just the first few moments of the track and like the first minute. Yeah. And the chorus is great. Yeah. But I agree with you.
Yeah. Although I will say, during the verses, there's like these nice little guitar fills that come in at the end of each line. I love those.
Yeah.
Those kind of save
it's
the track
very nice.
as well. Yeah.
So in terms of the lyrical content of these songs, we speak very little Japanese. We both took Japanese class in high school, and I took a few more in college. But as we've never really been immersed in the culture, we're from Arizona, by the way, Gilbert, Arizona. not a really big Japanese-speaking area.
Really.
So we know a few words, but generally we have no idea what these songs are about. So judging from the title, two people who were turning back, and sort of the mood of the track, do we have any ideas what this is about? For me, I think it's kind of upbeat, even though I don't know.
The title sounds a bit like melancholic.
Melancholic, yeah. Like, are they turning back because they're like leaving each other? Personally, I'm making the prediction that this song is about going back to visit your home, or like you're turning around but to get to somewhere better. Maybe.
Or it could be like a metaphorical, like looking back.
Yeah.
And you're like reflecting
with fondness,
positively. Yeah.
Okay. So since we don't know, we're actually going to be translating all of these lyrics through Google Translate.
It'll be a bit rough.
And then sort of discussing them. We know that it would be much better to actually have an accurate translation.
Which we don't really have.
We don't. Also, I feel kind of bad just asking people to translate.
Yeah. not good.
Cool. So I have the translated lyrics right here. So we have two people who turned over. One sunny summer day, I saw a silly movie. Watch a movie with no money. It was that summer day when I was laughing. If you open the door, it will be heavy rain outside, splashing concrete, cracks in underground passages. Two people who turned over. Loud echo. Look at the screaming woman. It's like a movie with nothing to eat. It was that funny summer day. The dark night city that I kept walking on the guardrail. The dark night city that I kept walking on the guardrail, wet with rain. Not even like a comedian who can't sell, doing silly gags 3 times. The flow of time is so fast, crossing the eyelids. Such a day today. On the wet crosswalk to the station, punch your left shoulder. What's going on here? Are we blaming this on Google Translate?
I'm going to blame some of it because there's, at least like in regards to what I said, a lot of it kind of falls into that, but then you have like lines like punch your left shoulder.
Yeah.
I feel like some of those are
there's also kind of a juxtaposition here between these light images and dark. Like we have a silly movie, Sunny Summer Day, which kind of is what the song sounds like, but then he says, you know, the screaming woman. Like is he seeing that in the film, or is that
also
happening?
Like is maybe it's, I don't know if this has anything to do with the translation. Is it maybe originally it wasn't supposed to sound like a screaming woman?
This is
maybe,
true.
Yeah, maybe it could have been something that got lost in translation. But you know, I know what you mean.
But yeah, overall, I would say this track does seem sort of positive and reflective.
Yeah.
You're watching a movie with your friends. You're like, it was a good time.
Silly movie.
Silly movie.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool. So our next track is one that I previously mentioned. It's Hikoki, which translates to airplane. This one became a live staple. So how do we feel about the studio version?
I love it. I'm a big fan. It's probably, I would say between this and another track, it's definitely my favorite on the album. Something about like the chord, this is where, because I find they're really strong with melodies, and this is like one of those tracks in their early career that like really showcases that talent.
The vocal melody that Shinji's doing, it kind of keeps getting higher and higher on the chorus. It really feels like, I mean, not to be kind of cringy, but it sounds like you're in an airplane, you know, like taking off, elevating. Okay. But then you have that piano refrain that actually goes down, and that one is just beautiful and it's iconic. Yeah,
everything about the track, everything just fits together, it flows right, and despite it being like the same length as these other tracks, which feel like they go on too long, this one does not overstay its welcome at all.
Okay, I feel like this track pretty much has the exact same structure as the first one. Mm-hmm. You know, we get the opening and the first few verses and choruses, and then we get a guitar solo. This guitar solo doesn't work for me at all, though. I really preferred the ones on Futari. Like, this one, it's kind of sputtery. It feels like it never really locks into a groove as much as the other ones.
It's not playing anything wrong, but it's not playing anything that I really care about.
It's not playing anything right.
Yeah, it's there. It is
there.
occupying space.
But also after that, we get our first synth solo on the album. This one, I kind of have the same issues. It's kind of just there. It's kind of sputtery. It never really is grooving as much as I would like. So I would honestly say this one, in terms of melody, I think it's really strong, but I think this one drags a little bit more than the first one.
Really?
I don't think it's as strong as the first track.
I just feel like, but like besides those solos, like everything else is just amplified.
Yeah, the melody here, it's really great songwriting.
Yeah.
So, not to be obvious, but I think the song is about maybe flying on an airplane to someone that you love. It seems there's a sense of excitement or longing in those piano notes.
And I noticed this, especially with these first 3 tracks. There's a theme here. All 3 of them use the lyric futari a lot, which means 2 people. Especially in like the repeated chorus at the end. I forget the exact words, but it does mention like 2 people. Futari.
Our boy Shinji's in love.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I think it's something about like meeting this person or spending a really nice time with this other person. You know, these 2 people. Although it seems to be from like an outsider's perspective, like not him and another person.
Yeah.
But just 2 people.
Yeah.
Like he's telling a story.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because I know one of the words used is monogatari, which means story. So it's like the story of 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the.
Solid.
We'll get the lyrics.
So before we get into the lyrics, do you think there's a reason why the band chose this song to appear on a few live albums? Like it seems to be one of their favorites from the album.
Well, I do know it is the first single. I feel like that has something to do with it. I feel like it might be, especially at this time, one of the more iconic tracks, mostly because it was a single.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has a lot to do with it. And I know, like with plenty, like especially with the last concert, they're trying to represent all parts of their career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do feel like this is really probably the most representative track from this album.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the strongest track in terms of them just playing like reggae music. We'll get to that one later. But I do think, in terms of what they're trying to do on this album, just as a whole, if I had to choose a single, it would probably be either the first track or this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so let's get into these translated lyrics. All right, the Google machine has worked its wonders, and we have our lyrics. Now that sky is over, 2 people watched. The airplane is dim. You 2 were looking up. Your story also jumped into that sky. Airplane drawing. You were dirty in the blue sky. The story of the 2 is always the same day. Even after many times, the contrail that doesn't disappear is still that. I can meet you here all the time. I'm waiting without disappearing. Follow the plane secretly. You 2 were looking up. Even after many times, the contrail that doesn't disappear is still that day. And then we got boon, 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 boon. Beyond the building, boon, 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 boon. I jumped. So yeah, I think we were right here. 2 people, they're in love. Their story is jumping into the sky. Love repeats itself. The story of 2 is always the same day. And I like the contrail not disappearing, sort of like the plane is making, lines in the sky that are still there.
There you go.
It's beautiful.
I
think these lyrics translate it, except for the line about you were dirty in the blue sky.
Yeah, and just like...
Is he talking about, like, having sex on an airplane?
Nice.
Is he in the Mile High Club? Shinji.
Shinji.
Oh, yeah, we also haven't said this, but Shinji.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Our boy...
I just want to make that abundantly clear.
Is
a lot of respect.
No longer with us.
Yeah.
Nice. Next track. But on a lighter note, let's get into the third track. This one is the first track with the title in English. It's called Special Night. So the first thing I noticed in this track is that I knew a word at the beginning. He says mainichi, which means every day in Japanese.
That is true.
Yeah, I was proud of myself. And he also says atarashi, which is new. So we got new words every day, something that we can just translate this ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. I immediately, and we'll get into the structure later and how it might sound a bit familiar, but there is a difference here. This one is a little darker in tone, just a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it feels a bit heavier and groovier than the first 2.
Yeah. Sort
of similar things instrumentally happening, but it just hits a bit harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, how do you feel about Shinji's English voice when this is the first English lyric he said on the album when he goes, "Special night"? How do we feel about that? Does it sound kind of goofy or what's going on?
Yeah, he's not a fluent English speaker, which is fine. I'm not going to make fun of him for it.
No, I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is like, do you think this is a quality that people enjoy in Fishmans music? Is sort of not the mispronunciation, but sort of the
inclusion of English lyrics.
Yeah.
I
think a lot of their bigger songs later have English lyrics, and it sounds a little goofy.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
It's not because he's not an English speaker. It's just because his voice sounds like it does.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't really have much to say about it.
I really like it for one. I think
Yeah.
it helps the track stand out. So, yeah. This one, yeah, it does feel a bit more focused on Shinji and the vocals and less on really interesting or different instrumentation.
Although there is, I don't know if it's a marimba or not, but there is that like nice little solo because you gotta have a solo. In the
I was
middle.
gonna get to that.
Oh, sorry.
So just like the other ones, once you kind of get into the groove on this song around the 3-minute mark, it keeps going. We get the first trumpet solo on the album by
That's right.
Shinji. I think this one, it's a nice addition to the track. It's cool to hear it included here, especially to kind of like differentiate this one from the first 2 tracks.
However,
But you know, it's kind of
falls into the same
yeah.
traps as the other solos,
Yeah.
which I appreciate the effort, but you can't always win.
And then we get the marimba, the bell solo. This one is definitely unnecessary, but
I like the way it sounds.
I like the way it
because-
sounds.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of. I know I said earlier that the album's very varied. I think by the time you get to Special Night, this is the only time where it feels a bit stale. I think it's just because these first 3 tracks all follow the same structure to a T.
Yeah.
That, you know, by the time the solos are hitting on this track, I just
know
feel like
they're
I've heard it
coming.
twice before.
Yeah.
So, but I do enjoy it, and I like that they changed up the tone a little bit.
That is
Yeah,
true.
but it's not one of my favorites on the album. I think this song is about a special night. He's going
so?
out on a date, maybe, or they're just
But
about to play a show.
It's just, the tone of the track. It makes
Dark,
you
though,
wonder.
right?
Yeah. Not brooding at all. It just,
Yeah.
it does take it takes a bit more of a serious tone. So
Any
Curious
ideas
to-
what it's about?
I have no clue. I
Alright.
know it's called Special Night, and I know what it sounds like.
Let's plug it into the Google. These lyrics are great, I think. We got, I'm tired every day. Wow, wow. Same. But I'm drunk tonight. Wow, wow.
There we go.
So
That's where
he's really, is Shinji, does he
He's
have a
drowning
problem?
his
Is
sorrows,
he
yeah.
drowning his sorrows in alcohol? Iron the washed shirt. A new story begins. Because tonight is a cheerful, special night tonight. After a long time tonight, that girl who is tired of work will get wow, wow. She's getting wow, wow. She's going. I dance every night, every day. Wow, wow. Jumping on a light step. I'm very excited today because tonight is a cheerful, special night tonight. Let's drink tonight. Special night. Wow, so really nothing dark here at all.
I mean, it does start off with,
You know, he's drunk, but
But,
he's
you
tired
know.
every day. But it feels like, if
kind of-
anything, I think the dark tone of or darker tone of the track is really just reflecting, the city lights, the atmosphere of the city at night,
Yeah,
instead
that
of
could be
just.
Yeah, I don't
any
think it's a
lyrical.
dark track at all. But yeah, good lyrics. Cool.
I like
good.
getting wow, wow.
What is Wow Wow?
Yup.
Nice. Great
So-
track, Special Night.
All right, 4th track, also an English title. We have Good Morning, sort of a sequel to Special Night, maybe
guess so.
the morning after when he's hungover, and potentially he is because Shinji is not doing vocals on this track.
It is Motoki himself.
Yeah. So how do we feel about Motoki's vocals? If I believe this is the only, at least on a Fishmans studio album, or any track
Yeah,
where Shinji.
Yeah, I can't recall another song where he provides his lead vocals, and honestly, I don't dislike him. He sounds fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't sound any more rough than Shinji does.
He's a bit clearer and just more sort of like punctuated. Shinji kind of.
Yeah, it sounds like he is trying to reach that higher register.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I just think because Shinji's not on vocals, it does lose a bit of its character. It shows just
Yeah.
how important Shinji is to the group.
I wrote the exact same thing. I said,
really?
it really shows how necessary Shinji's voice is to Fishman's unique sound. I put that this feels like my parents got divorced and my mom is introducing me to my new stepdad. And like he's cool and he works,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, I don't know about this. Like I miss Shinji here.
I guess so. Yeah, it's kind of distracting because
It is, yeah.
I'm sure his vocal performance is great. It's just all I can think about is when is Shinji coming
Yeah,
back?
but on the same level, I do appreciate it, especially since I was sort of complaining about how by the 3rd song you fall into this sort of drawl. So this really does serve to spice up the album and give you something new. Like if you were listening to it and you were disinterested, this gives you a new
It's
sound.
something. Yeah. However, the song itself isn't
Yeah, I
necessarily
don't-
anything new.
yeah.
It's a fine track, and I appreciate Motoki's effort.
And as opposed to Shinji, I don't really like the way the English sounds in the song.
Really?
Good morning. And he throws in I like the little ooh ooh
Yeah.
over the synth solo. That's cool. But that synth solo, it's kind of cheesy.
A little bit. I mean, can't really ask for too much. This was 1991.
It's true. I said that this song sounds like the opening theme on some morning news show. It's just
that's
very bright and not much subtlety here.
Yeah, not really.
But yeah, we also have sort of a bass solo, or at least a moment here where the bass is spotlighted. I really enjoy that. There's not much going on. He's kind of just playing just the chords.
Yeah.
But he's doing a little funky
flourishes,
do 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 do. And then we get sort of a build up near the end of the track where the guitar comes in over the bass and they're sort of doing a little solo or duet together. And then the synth comes back in. So then there's this really cool outro where there's no more vocals. It's kind of just musical interplay. I like that one because they kind of break the track down to its bare essentials and then build it back up. But other than that, this is it's my least favorite song on the album, just because the melody doesn't really stick with me.
That's true.
The vocals I don't really enjoy, so it's not, aside from the instrumentation, not much here for me. So, what do you think this one is about? A good morning? You're waking up?
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Drinking a glass of OJ?
Maybe. I hope so. I hope there's a mention of orange juice in this one.
Well, let's see.
Let's see.
So the lyrics on this one, pretty straightforward. Let's go to the next town, turn around that corner beyond the end. The flow of the car as usual. Let's go whistling. Stop and look back a little. Squeeze through the crowd, somewhere to somewhere far away. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Nice.
I walk around. I'm looking around. I am getting tired. More and more motivated. But one day I suddenly woke up. Woke up. Woke up. Woke up.
Is this from the perspective of like a dream?
Maybe.
Like maybe that last part. It sounds like a night or a morning
Morning.
town.
I think it really is sort of a sequel to the last track because we also have a mention of getting tired here. But you're still pulling yourself together. I think that theme works well with this sort of like dub reggae sound because it's sort of laid back but also energetic at the same time.
Especially like this track in contrast to the sort of night vibes from the last one.
Yeah, it's very like your alarm clock is going off and you don't want to hear it.
Don't need to be so mean.
It's the track.
Yeah.
It exists.
I enjoy it for what it is.
Nice.
Cool.
So the next track also sort of throws a little spin onto the formula that we're accustomed to. It's called Natsu no Omoide, or A Memory from Summer. This one, it's the shortest track on the album, at 3 minutes and 22 seconds, which is short. It shows you how long most of these songs are.
Yeah.
So I kind of consider this one an interlude and not, at least in the context.
Originally listening to this album, I never really thought, it was one of those tracks that I know I heard, but I couldn't really talk about it. However, on a re-listen, preparing for this episode, it's become one of my favorite tracks. I don't know if it's, that high up there, but I'm so in love with the sound of that trumpet.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so simple, and I compared it to like the melody of a nursery rhyme,
or like just like scales, just like someone practicing.
Yeah, but it sounds so, like the tone of it. It's so relaxed, and it must have been the time of night that I was listening to it, but it put me in such a good mood.
And I like that. I mean, there's no lyrics here aside from Shinji kind of like showing up in the middle and being like, hey. But it honestly sounds, with the title A Memory from Summer, like he's sort of reflecting on maybe like learning the trumpet or just sort of those early days. That's why I think it's so simple. It really fits the track. And I also thought that it doesn't feel like Shinji's gone here because he isn't. He's playing the trumpet. But the trumpet's tone is very similar to Shinji's own voice, especially over, the bass and guitar. They're both kind of high-pitched and like...
Also, like, what it's playing. Like, if he were to sing lyrics in that same... It would make sense.
So I think it's a great stand, and honestly, I love this song. It kind of is disappointing to me how the trumpet, really doesn't show up again on future Fishmans albums.
That's true, yeah. Only a few occasions that I can
It's utilized really well here. And also later on, the trumpet and the synth sort of team up playing the same melody, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I am officially baby. This. So yeah, I think it's great that the song ditches the vocals and continues to break the monotony. So really by this point, if you're listening to this song, I don't think there's any argument to be made that this album is, all the songs sound the same. Because they don't. There's different stuff happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be fair, I think the song is too long. I think they could have had it, but that's just a criticism for the album in general.
Yeah.
The album is only 10 tracks long, but it's nearly an hour, which really shows that the band, I don't know, this might be a sign of immaturity, because I feel like maybe later on more seasoned bands feel more comfortable, you know, cutting things, shortening their songs because they feel so confident in them. Mm-hmm. So maybe the length of these songs kind of reflects on like the freshness of the band, or they're just like scared to cut anything. We'll never know. But either way, Natsu no Omoide.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the lyrics.
Yep.
Nice. And, you know, speaking of songs going on too long,
you didn't.
I'm going to segue into the next track.
The 6th track, Future. This is the longest track. It's almost 9 minutes long.
I don't know why.
So we're at a bit of a disagreement here. I love this track. This is sort of the final track on the album that's in the normal like dub reggae style of the first few tracks. Mm-hmm. And like I was saying earlier, I think this track is actually the pinnacle of that sound on the album, like the most fully realized.
Interesting. It's just, to me, I'm going to start off pretty negative here. The chord progression, which you'll hear pretty much throughout the entire 9 minutes, it does change a couple times. It's so, not grating, but after a while, I don't feel anything when I listen to it.
It is a bit slower paced. That's true.
It's not even that it's slow though. I don't know. There's nothing about it except the end, which I mean you can get into.
Well, let me defend it. Yeah, honestly, I think the main draw here is actually just Shinji's voice. His vocal performance here is my favorite on the album. And he kind of, he's like moaning, like there's this break 2 minutes in where he's like, ugh, and then he goes, Anatani! And it's just amazing. Like it feels like sort of the Shinji on later albums with all of his vocal quirks wasn't really present up until this point. Like later on when he says future, it's just like, it's beautiful. And it's sort of, he breaks into full baby mode. I love it.
Yeah, and I do enjoy the end, because it does start to pick up and introduce some cool things, but I think for the first like 6 minutes, I don't know. Wow. It's nothing bad. I don't hate the track. I just don't feel anything. I don't think.
See, this one makes me really nostalgic. I love that trumpet solo, and I like the chords. It it kind of goes on, but really unlike some of the 5 or 6 minute tracks, this one kind of flies by for me. Maybe just because I enjoy it a lot. Yeah. But yeah, I would probably say this is my second favorite song on the album. I think this is really, if you ask me to play, you know, just a song from Fishman's dub period or just a song from this album, I think this one really, it's like a fully realized form of that.
I guess so. Yeah.
But the lyrically here, what do we think's going on? Is he worried about the future? Is he just kind of sitting back and preparing for it?
I'd say more the latter. I mean, I'm obviously not too sure.
Yeah.
I don't recall there being too many lyrics. Maybe there were. Are there? Lyrics?
Well, not really. Maybe compared, it's just more spaced out.
I think that's what. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But
a lot of future going on.
See.
Yeah. Let's see.
So there are actually quite a few lyrics on this track. We got future invisible afternoon for you. Future, the disappearing lights are sparkling. You come when you forget. You are like the king of the future. I'm floating alone. A word or something like I told me. That translated wrong. If you run out of breath, better to sleep. Turn off the switch. Don't say you don't need a future. The inseparable sky, the shaking clouds. You are like the king of the future. I'm floating alone. If you spin at high speed, just a carousel. Just switch it on. So, I don't know, it's very abstract here, probably more so than any other track so far.
Maybe because it's about the future.
But it seems confident. You are the king of the future, sort of like you're the master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, the disappearing lights, though, it is very melancholic.
A bit, yeah, not sad.
I think this one sort of is a sequel to Natsu no Omoide, because it's very, just kind of breezy. I feel like I'm floating.
You think all these tracks are kind of like coupled together on purpose?
I do, yeah.
Because like the first 2 tracks really work well together. Yeah. Special Night, Good Morning, Natsu, and
yeah, I think I have no problems with the sequencing on this album. I think it's great.
Oh yeah.
And another great instance of sequencing is on the next track. This one's called Inago ga Tonderu, Tokyo Tower Mix, and it translates to Locusts Are Flying. So what is the Tokyo Tower mix? Do we know this? Is there a version of the song that
if there is, I don't think I've heard it. I've only ever seen the Tokyo Tower mix, and like even on their single compilation.
Okay, so it's not just on Spotify.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe it's somewhere. Shows how much of an expert I am. But it is the Tokyo Tower mix. That is all I'm confident in saying.
Either way, I think this is perfectly sequenced. Probably my favorite moment of sequencing on the album, putting this after Future. Because if Future was really like this sprawling embodiment of like their sound up to that point, this is like the furthest stylistic departure on the album.
Yeah. And it's
short.
It's so fun. I love
fun.
this. Right?
It's not dub or reggae at all. It's just like nice indie pop, kind of like acoustic.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I love it. The acoustic guitars and everything. That melody. Oh man, it's just.
And I knew another word on this one. Denwa. Do you remember? Phone.
Oh.
So someone's calling him on the phone. Yeah, I think the guitar solo here is really probably like my favorite one on the album. It's great. It's just funky and rockin'. But I also think the guitar maybe just works better over this style of music.
Maybe they're more familiar with how to like write a good guitar solo
over
music. Yeah, who knows.
Also, I love the yeah chorus near the end when sort of everyone's singing together.
Oh my god, this is one of the first tracks. I mean, other than Hikoki, there really wasn't a whole lot of like I don't dislike any of the tracks in between, but there weren't any tracks that really grabbed me. This is the first in the album, and like honestly, till the end of the album.
Yeah, it's definitely super energetic. I don't think it has like the strongest melody on the album, but just like the general vibe and the switch up in instrumentation, I love. And also over the outro, we get this really cool synth that's sort of going up and down, just like over the last few bars. Yeah, it's great. This is my third favorite track on the album, right behind Future. I can't say I enjoy the melodies as much as that track, but this is definitely in the top 3.
This is my third as well.
It doesn't sound like anything else the band has ever done. It's great.
Yeah. I mean,
we agree.
Yeah.
So in terms of what the song is about, I mean, you got this really poppy, summery vibe, and he also says holiday in the song, but it's called Locusts Are Flying. So what's going on? Like, do locusts come out in the summer? Is that?
I don't live in Japan.
Well, I'm assuming that maybe like locusts come out, so he's saying like the locusts are flying, so it's summertime. We're on
he's
holiday.
Calling someone on the phone because he sees it. And he's like, oh, I gotta.
Locusts are flying, which means it's phone time. But let's see what time it is when we translate these lyrics. Looking at them right now, these are probably the most simplistic lyrics on the whole album. We got, I came to play, yeah, 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 yeah. Occasionally take a break. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Remember, don't
Lady is running. The message from you, I want it. Lady I know, on the table, the meaning of peanuts. Do we think that this is properly translated or no?
I feel like peanuts is. Maybe it's something about.
There's no locust here though. Then we have holiday after a long absence, holiday with you, peaceful holiday. I'm always crazy. So sort of like just running around.
I feel like the title might just be like a context thing. Maybe the song isn't about locusts, but maybe that's just since I don't really know. Maybe that's just like a signifier of like it being summertime. The track is just about the summertime.
Yeah, almost sort of like a haiku. How the scene is just set by describing like the movement of an animal.
Yeah.
And it just tells you what season it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Funky. I love it. But
Fishmans.
if we're talking about a track that I really love...
Hey, I wonder if we share an
8th
opinion here.
track. It's a Go-Go Club, De Sure Chigai. Or Passing Each Other at Go-Go Club. So before we talk about it, this transition from Locust into this album.
Ooh.
Another great moment of sequencing. Locust kind of
yeah.
fades out and then it just like swoops in. It feels like it's just one big track almost. Where is Go-Go Club? What is Go-Go Club?
I've never actually looked this up. I've always just listened to the track. I'm not sure.
You gotta go.
You think it's an actual place?
I don't know. Look it up.
All right, so it's not a specific place. It might be referring to a go-go bar, which originally referred to a nightclub bar or similar establishment that featured go-go dancers. While some go-go bars in that original sense still exist, the link between its present uses and that original meaning is often more tenuous and regional. So it's just
Wikipedia.
a type of yeah. Yeah, I'm just on Wikipedia.
Just
right
a type
now.
of club.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which kind of fits this. I feel like they could sort of go back to their classic reggae sound here, but it's way funkier.
It is. It goes.
The rhythm
so
here and the
hard.
way the piano sort of like moves around.
That piano, it adds so much. Generally, like all the instruments, I feel like on this album, they play their role, but they don't really stand out. This piano, it goes. This is like the first true banger of the album.
It's great. It feels like some video game soundtrack, like some Donkey Kong, like jungle music almost.
And this gives me a moment to like highlight something I really like about this album is that the production specifically with the drums, they sound so good.
Oh yeah.
It's so punchy, it's so clear, it's so good.
It's great.
Good, yeah.
But yeah, this track sort of, I picture like someone running in endless circles,
Really?
sort of like around and around, because it's just, I don't know, there's something like absurd about it. Also, Shinji's voice here, he's like angry.
Yeah.
He's growling. What's going on? It's sick.
Yeah. Oh man.
Maybe that high note in Future wore him out.
Yeah, maybe.
And now he's like, yeah. So yeah, I feel like by this point in the album, Fishmans have really done a great job of establishing their sound. So this track kind of subverts it in a way. Like, they've established that they're really good at doing this one specific thing, and here they're like they twist it around and they make it more of a banger. So I love it. The guitar solo here, it's like acoustic. It sounds like some like flamenco.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
like it kind of sounds like a zither, and I wanted to talk about this because it shows up plenty of times like throughout the end of the track. It's such a nice touch to the album. It's such a nice.
It's spicy.
It's spicy. There you go.
It really does. Yeah, especially I'm glad they didn't whip out their just electric. You know, it's wild. And then we have this really loud sort of like, how would you describe it? The loud guitar in the back half of the track that comes in like wow, wow.
Oh, it's kind of, it kind of has that funky like wah-wah sound to it. I just, ooh, yeah.
And fun fact, we actually sampled this guitar sound in the latter half of the track in a track of our own.
We'll get into that later.
Oh, wait, do you want to play a little clip of it here?
Yeah, okay.
So that was a cool little thing that Chris did with that track a while ago.
In fact, I remember him telling me that he wanted to make like a dub track. And I was, obviously I'm listening to Fishmans 24/7. And I was listening to Go-Go Club, and I heard that break where it was just the guitars and the drums. And I'm like, that's perfect. It's such a great tone. It's so bouncy, but it's kind of I don't know.
It's just it's spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we also get these cool like synth bleeps in the outro. They sound like sonar or something, and then the flamenco-ish guitar comes back in, or zither, and then the piano, and it just keeps building. So
this is one of those tracks where like it does like go on, but I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
everything's super interesting.
And there are always new elements coming in, and just in general it feels really fresh. What is this track about? So we know he's at a go-go club now. We know there are go-go dancers, and his voice. I think Shinji is horny.
Maybe.
I think Shinji
sounds very.
He's trying to fuck.
He's in control of his situation.
He is running around the go-go club, maybe chasing someone, but not in like a creepy way. In like
let's be one thing clear.
In like
Shinji's
a foxy kind of way.
Yeah, he gets around.
So are we really thinking that this track is about sex?
I wouldn't say it's about sex.
It's
about being. I feel like, especially the nature of the track. Maybe.
Okay, well,
we'll find out.
Let's see.
We'll find out.
Cool. So the lyrics here, we got autumn breeze. The eyes are out of sight, and I can't speak any words. Heavy air situations.
Interesting.
Strong and irresistible. Tired and irresistible frustration. You can hear that in his voice, I think. The broken rules. The boring vacations. I can't do well with you. Let's stop doing bad plays. I love to wash clean. My room is beautiful. Wow, this isn't at all what I thought. I want the guy to drop like a pillar, but try to skip the light jokes. She wants to me so light. She wants to me so light. I can't do well with you. Let's stop doing bad plays. And in the go-go club, outlaws, I'm swinging my arms and a t-shirt that seems to tear off with a gold ring. Actually.
Well,
He's swinging his arms. He's going wild.
Also, that is sung in English, right?
It is. She wants to me so light.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's cool. Okay.
It means
a lot of things.
A lot of things.
It's, of course, take it with a grain of salt. This is Google Translate that we're using, but yeah,
They're ripping off their shirts, broken rules, frustration.
But it does start off like normal enough.
But I think it's confirmed this track is horny.
I guess so. Maybe.
Nice. Anyway,
Nah,
next track.
Oh, okay.
The penultimate track. We got Chance, number 9.
Ooh,
The rapper. This one kicks off with some trumpet. I personally think this is the prettiest trumpet melody on the whole album.
Yeah, definitely. This is also one of the 2 main bankers of this album. This and Go-Go Club. It's just
A banger, really.
I think so.
I don't know if I would call it that.
It's a bit slow. However, what really propels it forward is that kick drum. It just it plays on every beat, and it's throughout most of the track. It really brings the track. It gives it so much energy. I love it.
Does Shinji say sandwich on
He
here,
does.
or am I crazy? Okay.
One of the first lyrics, he says, "Sandwich."
I love it.
Oh my god, it's so fun, and that melody.
Yeah, I like it feels very light and reflective. Like, I'm glad that it's placed at this point in the album. It's kind of back to that stylistic root of the first few songs, but it feels different here. It feels like they're like, look how far we've come.
Very
like,
refreshing.
here we are.
Yeah,
It's
because it does
refreshing.
take those sounds, but it just amps it up a bit.
Also, we get baby Shinji back, and he says, "Shining light," and it's
He does say that.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
love it. Also, the middle section here.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So cool. You just get this sort of like
Hi-hat.
hi-hat for a while and bass, and then this wacky like liquidy guitar comes in, and it's like and it's drippy.
It's kind of drippy. And when he comes back, when Shinji comes back, there's this one specific sound I want to talk about. It's this cymbal hit, but it like kind of pans left and right, and it just sounds really cool. Because
Yeah.
it's just a short little like snappy cymbal hit. I just love it. It happens again later on. It's just,
Once again, it sounds like Shinji has a sore throat in the back half of this track. When he's saying "Sukisa," he's like "Sukisa," and it's dry. Boy needs some lozenges.
think so.
Do you like his voice in the
I
track?
love his voice in this
It's
track.
cool.
I love everything about this track.
I think it's
so
somewhat
fun.
grating.
Oh,
Yeah, I like it. I think this track does have some of the same problems as the first few, though. By the time the third trumpet chorus comes in, I'm kind of over it. Like,
I'm
for
never
me,
over it.
the beginning of the track and that middle sort of wacky experimental section are probably the coolest. But then by the end, it's another
I would
6-minute
say-
track.
fine. I didn't even know it was 6 minutes. Honestly, some of these tracks, like I would say, like Hikoki and Chance, they don't even feel like they're 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
But I would put this right below Inago ga Donderu, which is my third favorite track.
So it's your fourth?
It's my fourth. I could
I
have
thought we
said
were
that.
just doing top threes.
Okay,
That's fine.
I won't go any farther. I'm just saying it
That's
approaches.
true.
It
It's
gets
yeah,
close.
it's probably like high middle for me on the album. So lyrically, I sort of already said, but I think
about
this
sandwiches.
is well, it's either about sandwiches, but I think just based on the tone and nothing else, I think this song is like Fishmans started from the bottom. Like, I think they might be reflecting on their own career, perhaps.
Could be, yeah. That's a
Saying
good way of looking at
that
it.
it was left up to chance. I'm really reading into this.
Based solely on the title and how it sounds.
Any ideas?
I have no ideas other than sandwich and
Well, let's see.
shining lights.
Cool. So the lyrics here we have, let's get. There's not so much I want. Nothing. I'm waiting for you to come. Sandwich it in your mouth.
Oh.
Oh, what is happening here?
I want, because I don't really read into Fishman's lyrics often, so I would never expect them to get
I don't think.
this explicit.
I think this might be a mistranslation. Maybe
That's
he's
what I'm
saying there
thinking.
was a sandwich in your mouth instead of sandwich it in your mouth. I don't know if they would really use
Especially on a track like
sandwich
this.
as a verb. It's just kind of
Yeah.
Then we have the left jab pierces your chest, your footsteps every time you approach. Shining eyes. It's shining. It's pretty eyes like
He
marbles.
says shining eyes?
Yeah.
Well,
It's pretty eyes like marbles.
really
About the future, tomorrow, I don't understand anything. Hey, tell me now. Hurry about you. Hurry, hey. Because now it's a feeling of love, but I can't find the answer yet. Because now I'm waiting for a chance.
So it's not at all about
reflective.
her.
It's more about future again, sort of looking forward to, take your chance with someone.
Yeah.
I'm saying difficult things. I'm walking 80% of my property. Not all of it. He's got a big room and he's only walking around 80% of it. I don't say bad words, so I like it. I love cigarettes.
He does.
Shinji. So we've established that Shinji has two vices: alcohol and cigarettes. Also, maybe drugs later on.
But we knew about the cigarettes. There's plenty of pictures of him and his
Also,
cigarettes.
It was back in the day, so I don't know if we
Everyone's
should really, judge people by the morality of today. I don't like my face, so I like it. Same. I like it because I speak in my own words. I like it because I'm just talking badly. Just fun, just like you. It'll excite the dark me. Wow.
I don't know how many of these lyrics are a result of bad translation.
But honestly, I feel like if just based on this translation, this is probably my favorite lyrical moment on the whole album. Just we have a lot of interesting things here, like sandwiches, 80% of my property.
This is very fun.
It's very fun.
Awesome.
It's sort of, it's just weird. Just like the weird middle section of the track.
Like, yeah, there's that theme of like taking your chance with someone, obviously.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know. I don't know what most of that track is about. It's a lot of things happening.
The track that we do know what it's about and is not very strange is the final track on this album.
Do we know what it's about? It's just called Piano.
It's called Piano, and this one, a very creative title since it's a stripped back song, really just Shinji,
And
piano, and some guitar.
それではスタートです。
I will say this though. Okay, actually, you start off.
I was gonna say, this track is nice, it's pleasant, but it feels kind of like an afterthought. Like, it's really pretty, and I like that they strip it back. Once again, you have a moment of variety on the album, but there just isn't a lot to say about it. The melody doesn't really stick with me, and it's near the bottom of all the tracks.
Originally, I thought that, and
Yeah.
I still don't hold it to like that high of a regard. But I do think when it first starts, like the first 30 seconds is so beautiful. It sounds so nice, and it kind of sets you up for something that doesn't actually happen. And I think like the chorus, not a huge fan. It sounds a little cheesy. It sounds they're trying something, but it's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
And I like it as a closer, but again, it's a bit awkward. Thanks.
Yeah, like, I like closers that strip back and sort of show a different side to the band. So I like it more in the context of the album, but I don't know if I would really listen to it on its own.
However, you're right, and I do agree with you. But there is like a second sort of chorus. I don't really know the structure of the track like offhand, but I know there's like a second chorus that mentions piano, and I know it happens before the outro. And I like that. Like I forget the melody.
Oh,
but
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of switches up and the melody is a bit clearer. Yeah, if the whole track had been like that second chorus,
yeah,
I think
like
it
the
might
chords
be
change and everything. It's just
a
it's
little
such
stronger.
nice.
But overall, I mean, it works. It's really pleasant, and it's a nice way to close the album. But,
not much to say.
Not much to say. It's good. So, what do we think it's about? Playing the piano?
I feel like
Watch this is
Piano-
about like guitars, and we just don't know. But let's see. So here we go. What to do if you want a piano?
buy one.
Where do I go if I want a piano? The
Piano
piano
store.
store. If you want a piano, you can't escape.
Excuse me.
I can't do anything if I want a piano. Ah, piano. This is a bit more
This is
angsty than I thought. I can see all of your desires. Don't hide anything. Let me know. Why are you so blurred? How can you calm down like that? Ah, piano. I fell asleep without giving up. The piano is calling me with a lonely face. Music keeps chasing into dreams. If you want a piano, you won't calm down. And then when the piano walks, roll your arms. Keep hitting the keys and the morning is coming. A bit kind of darker and angstier.
it is about a piano though.
He's almost like trapped by the piano.
Like
Music
yeah,
is
music is
his dream, his nightmare.
I guess so.
God.
Well, that took a different turn. I didn't expect
knew?
that to turn
But I
out
love
like
that.
But it does. Hey, it does add something to the track. I guess.
So yeah, for a debut, I think having a 10-track album is great. So overall, our thoughts on this album. Let's do just go over our top 3 tracks again each. So for me, I had Locusts Are Flying at number 3. Really
Okay.
cool stylistic detour there. Future at number 2. I think that's the best of the reggae dub tracks here. And then Go Go Club at number 1. I think indisputably, I would say that's probably the only like classic song from this album. The only one that really transcends the album.
Excuse me. We actually share our top 3s is essentially the same thing. For my number 3, I have Inagoga Tonderu for the same reasons. We talked about it. For number 2, Hikoki.
Ugh.
It's
But sort of the same as Future. I think we're
Yes.
getting the same things out of those tracks.
exactly. And number 1, it's Go Go Club.
Nice.
I mean, honestly, it is a toss-up between Hikoki and Go Go Club. They do approach each other, but I think for the most part, when I go to Chappie, I really want to hear Go Go Club.
Nice,
The
yeah,
moment I
same.
was
It feels like
looking
the sort of, and especially with its placement in the latter half, it feels like the climax of the album.
forward to. Yes.
And my least favorite track is Good Morning. I don't really, this is probably the only track here that I barely get anything out of. Like maybe that outro I enjoy a little bit, but otherwise,
Yeah.
can't really see myself returning to it.
I'd say same for me. Either that or, forgive me here, maybe Future.
Yeah.
We'll say, but I would say, honestly, I would prefer Future over
Future, yeah.
Good Morning. Yeah, there you go. That's my least favorite.
And
Good
then
Morning.
in terms of just moments on the albums, not songs, just like specific maybe vocal moments or instrumental moments, my top 3 are, the third one would be the middle section of Chance, where there's all that wacky guitar stuff happening. I think that's really cool. And second would be the outro of Go Go Club, where the instrumentation keeps building.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like amazing. And number 1 would be when Shinji becomes Baby on Future. I think that's sort of just like, he's really coming into his own as a vocalist and exploring his...
Yeah, because that's
playing.
honestly maybe not a problem. Just something I noticed on this album. He isn't as confident in his voice as he is, as you can hear in like later albums.
He's at least more restrained, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe that's just it. Maybe I just mistake it for that. I didn't rank moments, but I can think of some because I know
Nice.
there are select moments that I really appreciate. Yeah, the middle section of Chance, but I love how it comes back after that. So more specifically, like when he's reintroduced, also that cymbal noise. Like honestly,
Yeah. It's crazy.
the repeated. I think this is my favorite, so I'm gonna find another one. You know, I'm gonna steal yours. The end of Go Go Club.
Yeah.
That is honestly such. Yeah, you've said
amazing.
all that needs to be said. My favorite moment is probably the end of Hikoki with that repeated chorus.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's really strong.
I love that chorus. Hikoki, it's the track. I'm
Hikoki.
sorry.
It's the track. I enjoy it, yeah. It's really grown on me since I first heard the album. So overall, album pros for me, I think this has excellent sequencing and flow. It's really like well composed for a debut album. The only lag that I even had, or time when I thought that the album was sort of slowing down, was during Special Night. But after that, it keeps varying. And the craft here is really good. I feel like the band is really confident in what they're doing, and especially with the melodies and the songwriting. The melodies on this album are always great. But my only cons with the album, it's overlong. I think you could really have every track be like 3 or 4 minutes, and it would be much better.
Yeah, even some of my favorite tracks. I
Yeah.
can see where you can cut them,
Yeah.
even if I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would cut any tracks.
Oh,
Maybe
definitely
maybe Good Morning. But otherwise, it's like you could just take a guitar solo out here or there.
Yeah.
And then the cover, I don't like the cover. But
Is
it's
it-
not really keeping me from
Okay,
enjoying
yeah, I
the
was-
album. Yeah.
Okay.
What about you? Any general thoughts?
I agree.
You agree? It's
Yeah,
it's a
pretty
great
much,
album.
yeah. I mean, I don't like fully agree with what you said about like their confidence in songwriting and melody. Like I don't think it's a problem either.
Oh, it
I just-
definitely gets better. But
There
I
you go.
think
That's
this
all I
is
wanted
it
to
is
say.
great. It shows that like they've been playing together for a few years and it's natural.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I really don't see how this is rated so low on Rate Your Music and just like regarded kind of
You
as
don't
it
hear
is.
like even
I
you
love it,
hear
yeah.
like their other early albums a lot more than you hear about Chappie.
Yeah.
People just kind of want to forget that Chappie exists, and I'm not sure why.
I don't think I would be like a super huge fan of this band after just hearing this album, but I would definitely be interested to check out their other stuff. And
Especially since like
yeah,
you're gonna hear about those other albums anyway.
if we were to give it a numerical rating, I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10. It feels like a solid 7. Like a lot of what's happening here is working, and the things that aren't necessarily bad. It's just sort of like excessive.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like you've been generally more positive in this review than I have. You gave it a 7. I would give it an 8. It might just be because the highs that I feel the album has, I like them more. Like I feel like there's more highs.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. You know what I mean, though. I love the album.
Yeah, if
I really
anything,
do.
it is very consistent.
Yeah.
Like I think you pretty much know what you're getting when you listen to this album. It's orange juice. It's there for you.
Is that the theme?
That's
of the
that's the
episode?
theme. Orange juice. Nice.
Drink your orange juice.
All
It's
right,
good
so
for you.
that is Chappie.
It is, yeah.
I love that movie. I actually haven't seen it. Neil
it's-
Blomkamp.
Every time I look up Chappie on Spotify, like Chappie Don't Cry on Spotify, the Chappie soundtrack comes up. I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, that is it.
All right,
Well,
so
yeah.
please listen to Chappie and maybe let us know what you think. We have some social media. We might get more in the future. Right now we just have an Instagram. It's going to be FISHCAST.
I'm gonna open a Twitter after this, like right after this episode.
The actual handle of the Instagram is Fishmans Podcast. And our profile picture is part of the cover from Kingmaster George, the second Fishmans album.
And our next episode, right? Or
No. So
We-
actually, our plan
Forgive
is
me.
we're going to do an episode once a month for the rest of this year. sort of covering all of the albums, live albums, and EPs. So the only real EP that Fishmans have that's like a prominent
Is Corduroy's Mood.
Corduroy's Mood. So
That
that
is
is
right.
what we're going to be covering next month. And then we'll get to
Exciting.
Kingmaster in March and just go an album a month from there.
Real excited for that.
So yeah, until then, keep listening to Fishmans. So yeah, you can find us at Fishmans Podcast on Instagram. I am a giant fish on Instagram.
Unrelated to Fishmans. Let's get one thing.
It's actually a Gorillas reference, but
Nice.
that's for another time.
It really worked out. I am gonk.aka.mantis on Instagram. I don't have time to explain what that means,
He's
but
Gonk.
I am Gonk. It's an Autechre reference. I guess both of our Instagram handles reference bands we really like.
So yeah, keep an eye out in February for our Corduroy's Mood review, and after that, a few episodes in, we might start doing some polls once we establish a listener
Wow.
base. Maybe
This is our first episode.
ranking our favorite songs, ranking our favorite albums, and yeah, if you just have any other ideas for episodes that we could do, let us know. Message us.
Constructive criticism. How does my voice sound?
We pretty much have our first year all set with just reviewing all these albums, but whatever we do after that is totally open to what people want to hear. We can review
Yeah, there are a couple
Fishman's adjacent projects or just whatever.
There's a couple bootlegs that we definitely have to hit.
Bootlegs, yeah.
Yeah, but past that.
Every
it's pretty
Fishman's
open.
track will be covered. It's just a matter of beyond that, what are we doing? Because they're not active anymore, so
Even tracks no one's ever heard. We'll get to them.
yeah.
We'll find them.
So that's been FISHCAST.
Woo! We did it. Love you.
I'm unstuck.